this
With the
trail.
sauce on your right
Trail
and
and
stuff,
stuff.
so.
Is
Okay.
that-
I had tortillas.
Is that
Hours.
something up there on McGillen?
No, this is just for the volunteer hours tracking,
Oh,
of just making sure we've got everybody's, so if people wanna write in, so this is for July 2022
Oh,
through
Good, how
June,
about you?
yeah,
twenty
I was coming.
and then July twenty
Yes.
twenty-three through June 2024.
Okay.
So the stuff that you did for McGillen in that time period, you should write it in,
Like a ghoul.
you know, when, who, what it was, approximately how many hours.
All right.
And I'll go in later.
Okay.
Fill that in.
Well, my intent is to, yes, to say like, if this is what this volunteer organization looks like. There's another one.
That's how I started out.
Yeah, yeah, okay.
Funny choices around town.
Yeah, right, right.
I might just be like,
You have to have.
takes on the city stuff.
Right.
Cause
Yeah.
I'm technically
Right.
not supposed to. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like that. one.
Well, make a plate if you like, I'm not
Yeah.
kidding.
I'm good. Thank
Okay,
you.
all right.
I know.
I realize we are like social partners this week.
Yeah, I'm gonna see so much this week. Mark sent a really hilarious text to Nick. It was like some bird that was just like.
Oh, yeah, yeah. He saw a bird that I think had been run over.
Oh, I saw that one in the corner.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
The white one.
And he was like, I got to tell Nick that he can pick up this
It's
bird.
like it's half eaten, even my dog
Yeah, he
wouldn't
was
go
like,
near it.
hey Nick, I think the bird's still there if you're hungry.
It's feather tossed everywhere.
Yeah.
And Nick picked up a roadkill deer last week that was like freshly, and he was like, that's deer number 3.
I always like it when you see a porcupine, I mean, it's sad, but you think, okay, somebody's gonna make good use of those quills, you know someone's gonna
Yeah.
stop, say that.
I've been tempted once or twice. I still have a pretty good quill.
Hello, hello.
Hello. Hi, Dad.
Hey.
Yeah, how are you?
Hello. Oh. Just greater than hot sauce, I am.
Not sure volunteer hours. Just one is
Okay.
trying to update them. One of them for just
Let's do it. What do you think?
I think Amy has her own, like,
like the
weekly.
weed program at them.
She has her own way.
Yeah.
When did we do that? You know?
Do we wanna do it?
Oh, let's do it.
Let's do it!
Do it.
Let's do it! Okay.
Oh, Teresa, I might need your thing back. I don't see it in the,
It didn't show up, okay.
Okay.
oh, wait, maybe like maybe it's just on the desktop. Yeah, found it.
You got it?
Are we live?
We're live.
Okay.
So, are we officially in comment period?
Not
We'll
yet.
do roll call.
Okay.
Should I do that?
Come ye, come all, welcome everyone to the December Parks Board meeting. Madeline, would you please be so kind as to take attendance?
Corey,
Yes.
Cornfield, here, Graham, here, Thornton,
Here,
Thorson, not here, Daniel, not here.
We have online in Allen Fest and some folks here in the audience who are, I think, here for public comment. Can I just please get a roster of who would like to make a public comment tonight so that we make sure we allocate time appropriately? Ms. Teresa?
Hi, this is Alan. I'd like to make a public comment.
Okay, great.
Royce.
Roy, wonderful. Okay, as there are 3 of you,
We have, actually, Royce is on the agenda.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're talking about the ball field.
Okay.
So you get more time.
All right.
Yeah.
Done.
And 3 minutes.
Oh, well, Teresa, if I could ask you to make your comments, and then Alan online, and then since Royce is on the agenda, let's do that. Teresa?
Sure. All right, I promise this will be the last update of the year. Thanks for throwing it in there.
Good one.
Okay, so I just wanted to give you a brief update on the observatory, because people probably do come to you and Parks Board and ask you, hey, what's going on up there? The construction on the exterior is complete, and it looks great. What's left is to do the interior motor assembly and the cog rail, test it out, and then finish the electrical and the integration of the solar with the generator slash battery slash inverter, and then wiring into the service panel for the electric. So it's all the finer details that are interior that still need to be finished. And I don't, we don't really have solid dates because, of course, all of our contractors are juggling many different things at this time of year, especially. So we don't have a completion date. Until it is inspected by the city, it will remain locked, and any of our events are solely on the outside of the concrete on the apron. All right, so I thought that was important for you to know that, because we have advertised, so the new milestones. I think October 4th was the last time I was here, and since then, we were informed that we didn't get one of our grants, but we still have two that are pending. We had an Equinox solar event with Yellowstone Sanctuary, and we resubmitted a grant application that was lost somehow in the ether. And we have two public events scheduled. I think that's it on the next, nope, that's later, I'll show you the details on that. We have raised $47,000 toward the bill, the brick and mortar bill. We have roughly about $8,500 to go. And again, with those two grants that are pending, we could be pretty much home free. Let's see what happens. It might be kind of close, maybe about $1,500 or $2,000 that we still have to fund, but I think we're getting really, really close. Should hear announcements in the next week or so. I mocked up just so you have an idea, an annual cost of operation and maintenance should only be around $1,100. We got a good policy quote for the outbuilding and property. It's not, nobody wanted to, when they heard it was an observatory, nobody wanted to touch it because they immediately think we've got hundreds of thousands of dollars of equipment in there. So we have a high deductible if the property is insured. So anyway, that's thanks. Meanwhile, yes, I think it's the last slide, Courtney. We did schedule a Geminus Meteor Watch and Moon Craters and Rays event on both the 14th and the 29th. The idea around the 29th is that people are hanging out with their families and they really kind of need something to do other than go out to the bars and to eat again. So, or to see the same movie. So we're really happy to be able to offer the Moon Craters and Rays, especially on December 29th. And then the peace night for the Geminis is either the 13th or the 14th. So we chose the 14th, and that's it. And then we will continue working on web development. We have been invited to fill 2 seats at MLC, the Montana Learning Center, in September, so that more of our own group is able to lead these events or help lead, join in. That'll be next September. And then we'll continue holding public events on the apron. We're working on establishing an endowment to pay for that annual ops and maintenance cost of $1,100 some odd. We will work on clarifying the signage working with the city, and of course clarify to the public where they're supposed to park, because it still seems to be a big mystery. And where they are supposed to park is on the sides of the city streets, on the easements, just like when you're down here, same as up there. That's the city street, and anyone can park on either side of it. So maybe we have to put up some signage or something, I don't know. We also want to plan for a dedication and opening sometime in the spring 2024. We'll probably be done before that, but of course, who's gonna come out in really bad or severe winter weather for a dedication and an opening? Anyway, that's where we are. Are there any questions?
Sounds like a good Earth Week activity for 2024.
It does, doesn't it?
When are you gonna hear on the grant applications, you think?
I should hear, someone was telling me that they have to, commit with some type of a grant rule that I don't know about, but they're supposedly supposed to commit before the 12th, or the 17th of December for
Oh, cool.
purposes of having things passed by the end of the year, and that may be specific to their foundation, but I would expect to hear within the next week or two on the outside.
Oh, that's exciting.
I know. I'm pretty sure of a couple of things, so I think we're getting really squeaky close. Oh, and the last thing, Courtney, as you're leaving town, I know you could care less about the notification procedure, but
I care.
we'll continue working on it. I did fill out the one sheet, the draft, and I saw a couple holes, so maybe we could get
Yeah.
together and talk
Yeah.
about how you wanna.
Yeah, so all MOU groups are supposed to report when they have, like games, tournaments, that way we can, and the city is also supposed to have a calendar where we keep that stuff as well. I created it a couple years ago, and then I haven't been able to like really follow up on that. So that way, like, there's one place for people to go to see where city parks and activities are being used.
Yeah. So, I mean, when I was putting this together, I thought, there's one possible ask of you on the Parks Board is, every time I'm asked, well, where is the observatory? I say, it's in Van Dyke Park, and they say, well, where is that? You don't have a sign for Van Dyke Park.
That's what is on that.
So, well,
Or an address.
well, or the updated website of, the city website listing all its parks and
Mhm.
things like that. I don't know, I didn't go and check it, but that would be handy, because I could put that on events when I'm planning them and posting them and say, here's the link to
Right,
where the
so one
city-
thing that would help too is we need to follow up on, addressing,
Mhm.
which I don't know why people are busy, so we can follow up on that. You would be able to give an address.
Yeah, and
Because
for
if we had
security
park
and safety-
addresses, then you could say, we're at such and such road,
Right, I mean, if you called an emergency today, of course, our local people know where that is, hopefully.
Yeah, but there is an address, there is not addressing.
But, we could use an address, and, I was gonna say, the good news is, you reminded me, Beth, the HMH, which is, Micah Hoffman did the electric, is working on the electric for us, and he came up and looked at the plan that was proposed, and he says, okay, just one thing, we're gonna add an external, breaker switch. So if it's on fire, yeah, I feel so good that he's doing the electric for us. He said, oh, yeah, if there's anything that goes wrong and, emergency has to come up, they know where the breaker switch is outside, because those two doors, the only two doors on the building are deadbolted, and there's only gonna be 4 keys, and the city will have one, so we don't want everybody running around trying to figure out how to get in to turn off electricity. I think we're okay.
Any questions?
I really commend you on the continued excellent work on many fronts.
Well, and you guys, I wanted to plan for the dedication and opening in spring 20, I wanted to make sure you guys knew that we all appreciate your support, the Parks Board, and all the support you've given us through this whole procedure and, process, and, staying with me through all the updates so that you know how to help communicate and everything. It's been wonderful, so thank you. We hope you will all attend the dedication and opening.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you, Teresa,
Good
so
job.
much.
Thank you.
Ellen, may I give you the floor next?
Thank you. Hi, my name is Alan Best. I'm from the Sustainability Board. Here's my 3 minutes or whatever. A couple of weeks ago, just for sort of grins, I submitted a pre-application to the Arbor Day Foundation for tree planting funds, and they actually replied I know they recently got a big chunk of money through the EPA grant to plant a bunch of trees nationwide. But anyway, they actually replied to me today and said, here's a tree proposal form. And I skimmed the application. It looks like definitely something that I could do with the online resources that are available. But if this is something that the Parks Board is interested in me pursuing, applying for grants to plant trees in and around Red Lodge, if there's someone there I could talk to, if I had, as questions kind of come up about like exactly how many trees and what size and gallons, that's how they measure the size of trees, I guess, and a possible budget, that would be wonderful. I did some research and saw a 2017 tree survey on the City of Red Lodge website, and it showed 91 potential tree planting sites. And I don't know how many of those are left, but that would definitely be part of the information needed for the application. So I have one or two little things after this, but briefly for the Arbor Day Foundation application to get money to plant trees, is this something that the Parks Board is interested in me pursuing further?
Yes.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. There's a lot of information online that I could kind of adapt to the application, the text part. But if I did have questions, there's someone there that I could contact, with specific questions regarding like the history of planting trees and yada yada community events that I could include in the application as well.
Yeah, Alan, that would be me. Can you send me a copy of the application, and I'll forward it to the board as well, so if they have some thoughts.
Will do. All right. Next thing, trails. As part of this there's a big EPA grant called the CPRG, Climate Pollution Reduction Grant. Anyway, it's a ton of money that they're looking to get offloaded. We've talked about this several times in the Sustainability Board and Public Works and a couple other places. But anyway, going for sort of moonshot proposals here that might overlap with the Parks Board's interest. I saw there's an old 2016 or something study on trails around Red Lodge, and I talked with Melissa and Tom Coley from the BRTA about how could we request funds for trail expansion, connection, new trails, all that stuff that would satisfy the requirements of this grant, which are basically reducing greenhouse gases. And I'm thinking, if people are walking from point A to point B instead of driving, well, that seems like it might qualify. All this is very uncertain. We won't know for several months whether or not any of these considerations could get included. But anyway, talking with Melissa and Tom from the BRTA, they said, it might be cool to have some trails that are in the Brewery Hill / Highway 48, Highway 78 area, and also the Hospital to 2 Mile Bridge area. And these might be trails that could get higher usage that would justify such a request for grant funds, and wanted to kind of review this idea with the Parks Board and see if you guys had any thoughts to throw out there.
For him to know I'm in the audience.
Yeah.
We did not plan that.
Yeah, Alan, Melissa's here too. Yeah, and just so you are aware, I've been talking with the EDA, the Economic Development Administration, about doing an infrastructure study within the Urban Renewal District in Highway 78, of doing a feasibility analysis, engineering study, whatever you want to call it, for the city to put in a sidewalk or a trail of some kind up Highway 78 would be part of that. So that would be that first step for Highway 78 of getting it a concept engineered and some cost estimates.
Is that
Cool.
outside of the road right away then?
That's part of the study, is to figure out how to actually get something in there where it would fit, and because they're kind of disconnected really at this point.
Those both sound like great ideas.
Cool. I have two very small additional ideas to briefly throw out there. I'm not sure how likely they are to get funded by this, but number one is the 2016 Active Transportation Study has basically identified a couple of strategic sidewalks, which again could potentially move people from driving a vehicle to walking. Is that something, just want to let you know, that would be one possible idea that we could apply for money for. I don't, probably needs, probably a lot of changes have happened since 2016, but anyway. And the second thing is a comparably old 2017 wayfaring signs study, which might be able to point the way to, your favorite park. But anyway, I figure those might be sort of reach goals for this. Any thoughts from the Parks Board about the active transportation study and wayfaring signs as potentially being included in a grant request?
Yeah, I think that's something to chat maybe also with the chamber, because they're a huge partner in the wayfinding program. But I also, one of the things that we've talked about is the airport trail, updating some of the signage there. Yeah, there's some real big signboards that could be updated. They're a little faded, and then they could also be updated to match the wayfinding as well.
Cool, noted. Thank you very much.
Is there any, Greg O'Neill's change?
I think
Any further development on that?
no, but I think BRTA is going to continue pursuing that, working with the property owners that had concerns about the trail coming down to Nutting Avenue, and trying to work more with the property owners of seeing if there's ways that they can work around, like making them more comfortable having a trail installed there. I think that was sort of why it went on pause, because it kind of, a lot of people are upset.
Yeah. An answer that's happening.
Yeah.
Conversations are happening.
Yeah.
I mean, a trail down Brewery Hill makes so much sense. It's really scary to have people walking there when it's dark. I wasn't on the Parks Board, but when the highway got redone, it was a huge push to get the state DOT to do something for a sidewalk there, and they said it was too steep for ADA, so they won't do anything in the right of way.
Mm-hmm.
So then it was, okay, well, private, and that land, I guess, is blocked.
It's pretty wet. And I think the feasibility study is important, but
Hmm.
one of the things I spoke with Alan about when we had this conversation was, if it's going to increase accessibility and reduce greenhouse gases, it needs to be usable all year long.
Mm-hmm.
So I suggested including in that grant application some kind of snow removal device that could be used from the spires all the way to the hospital in one continuous plowing function, because we're missing the boat if we don't get people on it all year long.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, that's a BRTA thought in my head too, but if we were talking about pie in the sky grant applications and kind of understanding where he's at with that grant, it is, right now he's just making a list of ideas to submit to see whether we would even get a chunk of DEQ money. And it's administered by the DEQ. So it's an interesting grant, but it's not a specific grant application. It's a suggestion to DEQ to come back and potentially fund different projects. So, but those are things that have been talked about. But you're right, it's too steep. They won't. It's not worth revisiting it with DOT because they won't. But can we find someplace else, and then can we make it?
How do you plow well, I know how we plow our driveway, and it's not paved, and it isn't pretty all the time, but how do you plow non-paved trail?
I would propose that particular segment of trail, I would envision working with, my vision would be that we have a paved pathway, and specifically using the word pathway, not sidewalk, because pathways are funded by RTP grants. Sidewalks are not, and infrastructure is funded by, and those kinds of things are things we can work on, but So then it would be a small, narrow tractor with a snow blower on it. Places like Jackson Hole and other places, Sun Valley is a good example. I know there's lots more dollars there, but they successfully managed to keep some parts of their pathways cleared for trail walk, and then some parts paved, or, get groomed for snow activities, and we can look at both of those things over time, but the first, to me, year-round access is important. I was not on the public comment. I'm just,
It's a part of the public,
I'm just,
there's the public commenting.
yeah.
What if it just becomes a ski trail in the winter?
I think that's cool, but
Like
I
you don't
think
plow it and you just
yeah,
ski it.
it's good. The problem with that is all of the driveways and roadways that cross it are
Yeah.
like, it's click in, click out, and that's,
Mhm.
and to me, really, as a runner and as a walker, and the rest of the community that's a runner, a walker, bicyclist I see going up and down off that hill, let's make it year-round, accessible, safe for the kid that needs to ride his bike in from the fires, for the person who doesn't have a car, or for the person who just wants to walk. And we have places we can go ski, and we can work on that. And we can make someplace in town too someday, but let's get people from point A. If we do that and we use the sidewalks that exist in town, you could get all the way from, safely from the red box car, or even clear out to the Forest Service office on a sidewalk to the hospital. Right now, you cannot do that. And you can't get up the hill to the golf course safely. But if we could connect those two pieces, they're small chunks, but they're huge when you think about what it means to be able to get around town.
Yeah.
Alan, thank you for bringing this forward. Is there anything else you would like to put forward in your comments?
No, thank you very much.
Thanks, Alan.
Good stuff. Good stuff. Are there any other public comments in this portion of the agenda? Okay, I would like to walk through the portion that has voice on it, because if our wonderful non-Parks Board folks come in, we'd like to make good use of your time. Did you also have other items on the agenda today that we want to make sure we get through?
No, I just realized that we're partnering organizations, and there hasn't frequently been a BRTA body here, so I'm on the board, and I'm here to
That would be
just
awesome.
be here.
Well, thank you.
I'll try.
Thank you. Okay. Teresa Royce, can I give you the floor?
Give me the floor, huh? I guess I'm here, a little bit to get educated myself on the relationship between the city or the parks and the Little League, and to maybe give you guys some updates on where we're at and where we're headed. So I'll start with where we're at. In 2020, things kind of all fell apart with Little League with COVID, and we didn't have a season, and we lost board members. And so a lot of information, a lot of resources totally got lost. We now have a board that meets regular, all year long, not just during the season. We're working on some projects. Friday of Thanksgiving, we actually got an EIN number for the first time. So, yeah, steps. And we're called Red Lodge Baseball Association. And the reason we did that is because we'll be Red Lodge Baseball Association, and then we can do DBAs, Beartooth Little League, DBA. We've got some middle school and high school girls that want to start women's softball, so we can put that under there. There's also a big push from some parents and some people to eventually have Carbon County High School baseball, and they want to have a baseball team here. And so all three of those organizations or groups, we're all going to have to work together, but they are going to have to be a little bit separate, because everybody's got a little bit different agenda, resources, things that they need to do. So we thought if we just did that, and then they did the DBAs off of that, then we could sort it differently. We could also ask for grants differently, but still have an EIN number and still work together on all that stuff. Been at Bank of Red Lodge for 15 years, but the happiest people are the folks at First Interstate, because we have an EIN number, we have board members that can sign. We're actually organized now. So,
You know, if you have an insurance policy for
Not specifically. I think every year when we get signed up with a Little League group out of Billings that does our scheduling, I believe we fall into their insurance, is how it's always been, but I'd have to confirm that's how it
Yeah.
is.
There is one thing on the user group MOUs.
And, yeah, I think you're right, I think you fall under that.
Yeah, under the official Little League's insurance. Now, a lot of things come with that. Now, if we start women's softball, I don't know if that's different. It's interesting, the younger kids, their schedule is done by folks out of Laurel. The older kids, their schedule is done out of Billings. So 2 days before a game starts for those younger kids, that's when they find out they have a game, it's 2 days before. So there's just some other organizational problems down the line that doesn't involve us. But I guess I'm telling you all that because there's a lot of moving parts. And some of the folks that are on this board are new to town. So I think that's part of why this was written the way it was. But if you look at it, we're supposed to be telling you about maintenance and updates that we're going to be doing anyway. I don't know that it needs to be a special addendum, but again, new people trying to learn where we're at and what we need to do. So I guess that's kind of why I'm here to discuss too then, for insurance reasons, those fields over there need some help, some netting, some fencing, so those balls aren't falling in the windshields and hitting younger kids and stuff. So my question then to you folks is, can you help me understand how that works? What do we need to do a better job of submitting for funds, if there are funds? How do we keep this communication moving on a regular basis so we can do what's in here about tournaments that we're wanting to have? And eventually there's talk they want to have a third field up top, which was, I guess, plotted for 20 or 30 years ago, but it's turned into a giant parking lot. So as we evolve, I just want to make sure we're in communication and with you folks and learn what I need to do better with you guys to keep it going. So
You're already doing a great job because since I've started with the city, I've never been able to get in contact with Little League.
yeah,
And I think it's for, what you just described, like the pandemic really stirred things up.
yeah, I opened my mouth in July. So all of a sudden you're
Wait,
president.
Debbie Guru in your group, is she Little League?
She was, she's not.
She's not, okay.
I basically took her spot.
So, there was one question I had when I looked at your draft MOU, and we were asking for it in the spring, and I don't know where it went. It sounds like maybe it got submitted to Jody in the summer. We just got it last month. And I sort of helped the Parks Board with things at coal miners, and I've also been with soccer, who's been on that MOU for 20 years. So there's a joint one for use of that. The one question I have is what happens with adult softball, because you asked to go through August, and now, they haven't signed anything, but there's always been an agreement that adult softball has those field use from June to August.
Yeah,
That doesn't really make sense with what you're planning to do now.
so I think it was one or two parents that put that together. And they were, again, they're from out of town. A lot of them that put this together only lived here about 2 years and don't know the history of how those fields have been used. There's no reason that we probably need to go into August. But what happened this past year was, for the first time in, I don't know, ever long time, Red Lodge had a all-star team. And so the all-stars go until there's a round robin that starts in July. The kids actually we were ranked 8th out of 9, actually had a few upsets. We played until July 19th, which Red Lodge has never played baseball that late in the season before. And so there was a little bit of confusion and conflict of having softball, which has always been able to start because Little League's always been done. And some folks saying, well, Little League's gonna go longer now. Well, for All-Stars, there's probably not enough kids to even have one go next year. But if there is no reason that Little League has to take over that entire park and say, hey, softball, you're done, you're out of here. It needs to be working together with them, especially with these young girls coming forward wanting to have a high school softball team. It doesn't make sense then to say, all right, we want to take over from Little League, both fields for the entire summer.
Right.
And,
It needs to be worded better and differently.
yeah, and I think there's new leadership with what's built softball too, so I think it's probably just a good time for,
Mhm.
like, both groups in the city to sit down and just kind of like have those conversations that probably happened initially when that MOU was formed, to sort of just talk through like your expectations as a group, where your like vision for growth is, and then trying to make sure that, you know, communication between the two is open.
Yeah, there was definitely some issues, because I know like some of this was done, some parents would go out there and they built a brand new mound for the pitchers and for Little League, and then 2 or 3 days later, softball came in and just takes the mound down flat, takes all the work that the Little League parents did, so that they could play softball. So there was it was poor communication is what it was.
Yeah.
So it needed.
But at the same time, it shouldn't be the user groups that have to, like, battle that out. We've had a really hard time having anybody from softball, I mean, maybe you've had new contacts.
Yeah, I've found a new contact, and so I think I've updated that, so, and that they seem more willing to communicate, and I think it's just like all the new people involved need to sit down, and that's what we were trying to do a couple of years ago, and it was like, I could not get anyone to respond back, and I kept wondering if I even had the right information, and I think it was just because of the pandemic, there's a lot of changeover.
Right. The other thing we're doing, because of all the growth, we had 6 teams using 2 fields this spring, and so that was just tough to schedule practices and games for 6 different teams. So that's part of what you'll see in here, or that we want to continue to do, is maybe make a spot where kids can practice on drills and pitching and hitting drills, but not taking up the entire field. So it could be that softball has a game on the field, but there could be a designated area, like a bullpen area and stuff, where the Little League kids could actually still practice and things. So we're trying to figure out combinations of, all right, well, we can't just flip the switch and build a 3rd field, but maybe we could make some adjustments at the current location that incorporate more. And then we also used and have been in communication with Bridger and Belfry. Our kids practiced in Belfry on the football field last year because the weather was nicer. And then Bridger, as their kids are getting older, they can't have enough kids for a team. So we joined it. On our team, we had 3 kids from Red Lodge, 3 from Belfry, 3 from Bridger. So we practiced in Bridger, so those kids didn't have to drive over here all the time. We tried to make that work, and we just realized how much nicer the weather is over there, and you can get on the field sooner. And if they really do want to develop a high school team, we're gonna have to utilize. And they've got 3 fields over there, not enough kids. We've got a lot of kids, not enough fields. We've got people on the board, Brad, who's willing to write grants. So many things going on now that I thought it was important to, like I said, get in here, start conversations, and see what we can do.
Well, and with some of your fundraising questions, so there's a couple of avenues. So you can either, if you know there's a grant that you're going for and you want to request matching funds, so the city's budget is set, the fiscal year starts July 1st. And so the city will start talking about the budget here in a month or two and so Parks Board, we've pretty regularly had $80,000 the last few years, and within the board, we try to allocate. So if we know that, there's a proposal for matching funds for something that Little League, Red Lodge Baseball Association wants to do, then that can be built into the $80,000. The other way is that at the, usually May, June, when we're reaching the end of the fiscal year, we look and see how much funding we have left. And then we ask the MOU groups and other user groups to put in, you know, a reimbursement request. And so then we'll look at the request for reimbursement for funds, and if we have funding, then we'll try to allocate that way as well.
Okay.
Anything else?
If the city provides funding, do they have to do an engineering design because there's city money being used? I think that was what we were always told, and why we didn't take any dollars for the soccer field.
It might be if it's like, I mean, it probably depends on the project, like really what they're requesting, but we would, anything that comes forward, we just probably push through the public works director anyways to review and approve, or, you know, make a suggestion if there needs to be, engineering.
So maybe be cautious of that if we're gonna
Yeah,
change or really develop it. Some of these things might be more
Yeah.
maintenance oriented too, where we're not changing, so we're just
Yeah,
adding
that
some
was
net
always
or
better to
whatever.
call it maintenance.
yeah,
Yeah.
BRTA has run into that a few times too, with the city funding of having to do an engineering study.
Okay,
And then that has a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
okay. So the next step then would be, we need to go back to the board and say we need to maybe not even have this addendum the way it is, because to me it's kind of spelled out in here that we need to provide that information to you
Mm-hmm.
anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But maybe just have a separate breakdown, even, to me, even better than this, because, you know, they're asking for money to do whatever. Well, does that include labor, or is that just a set cost for an item? I think that should be broke down better, because we have a lot of volunteers, so a lot of the labor can get done
Mm-hmm.
for that. So is that what you guys would recommend, as we go back to the drawing board, put something together a little bit more official, a little more detailed? Work on the verbiage with the softball,
Yeah.
and then
What is
present
that?
that again, or?
What
Yeah.
is that document?
So they had done a draft MOU, and as an addendum, this was the request for the monies that they wanted to do work. So we don't have any MOUs that have an addendum like this,
Right.
so I would have them separated for sure. My question, Courtney, is, you know, because there's multi-users at the lower, what we'll call baseball diamonds. Right now, there's an MOU, and it's a multi-group MOU.
Mm-hmm.
So mountain biking, disc golf, youth soccer, baseball, and softball all have. So there's certainly things in here that you guys may want. Do they need to merge those? Get a copy of the one that, like, soccer signed
Mm-hmm.
and look at it?
Yeah.
Because, or do you want them to have a standalone one?
Well, I think it's cleaner to have, like, the user group, the multi-one, because of softball, so that it's just laid out there, one after the other. I mean, I think a lot of that could be grouped into the I think we just probably need to have representatives from each of those groups really sit down and look at this. And then if it comes out that, yeah, maybe we need to kind of split a little bit because the softball and baseball really have priority over those fields, if they need to have their own, and then we have a separate one for kind of the secondary uses, and maybe that's better.
Well, and I'd like to know all those groups that you just rattled off, because what I don't want to do is come in here with that attitude of baseball has priority, and so the rest of you are gonna go by the side, because that's just gonna derail
Mm-hmm.
goodwill and everybody working together. So I would like to work with everybody to figure out a
Sure, I
way
mean,
to,
they're baseball fields, they're designed for you guys.
Yeah.
right,
But the overlap is that, you know, there's a shed that 3 groups use,
mhm,
and the concessions is basically open to people that want to use it, and the bathrooms. And, you know,
I agree. I think it'd be awesome if we could get a representative of softball to come to coffee
Mhm.
with us and just talk about what they think they're doing.
Can you share the contact?
Yeah, yeah, I can,
Okay.
yeah. Just, can you email me tomorrow or tonight and
The
I'll
chances
see.
are, probably, we'll know the softball contact you. Can make that happen. And we do have a group of, like I said, 5 or 6 board members that wanted to come to this, but I told them,
Wow.
take a deep breath. We got,
That's impressive.
It's
Six board members.
it's impressive that they want, they want a high school team by next year, so
Yeah, they're ready to.
they're ready to go, and I'm here saying, well, we don't even have netting right now. Let's show that we can maintain what we have before we start asking the.
So I did hear that Public Works was gonna have Baldwin's work on the sprinklers in the
Mhm.
spring. I
Okay.
think that's already in their budget, which would be very helpful to those
Mhm.
fields.
Yeah, I think, because we'll have a new public works director, we're gonna have a new planner. And I know when I started, it was unclear of who scheduled for fertilization of the fields, and like, it took a while to figure that out, so I think it's probably time just to kind of regroup and toss all these, details out, because right now it's the city pays once and then the user groups pay the second one, and I'm honestly not sure that the second one's been happening. So,
No,
yeah, I think it's time to just, for us to have a meeting.
there was even individuals involved that don't like fertilizer or spray or anything, so, like, it just stopped. They didn't want any kind of chemical, period, so then weed product, it's been crazy. So I think getting together would be great, and I can start with our group. I think we meet on the 11th, so I can go back to them, tell them that we need to work with a few groups, we need to redo this. And then
Yeah,
maybe just keep coming to these board meetings as the liaison between the two for a while until we get it dialed in.
Royce, you're good at what you do. You are a master,
That's really good.
organizer, man, and I see you, Roy.
Right?
I think the action item is y'all gonna go drink some coffee and talk it out and move this forward. Did you get everything you wanted to get out of this meeting?
Yeah, I learned, but when you're starting at zero, any information is great, so this was helpful, and like I said, I'll go report back to them, and, I think we can get it dialed in.
I would give that board one job though, and to look into insurance.
Yeah, don't.
So what soccer did was soccer met the requirements of the National Soccer Association, Youth Soccer, YSA. And because we followed suit with what Montana Youth Soccer did, we were able to be in their umbrella. So we get a policy for $1 million every year, and it's because we meet the requirements of the state agency, and then they meet the requirements of the Fed. So if you're meeting the requirements of Billings, then Billings gets covered by somebody else, but there has to be like a certificate, has your name on it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I would ask the board to work on getting a COI for them.
And if you need examples of organizations who do some of those things, so Rose can give you the names of the insurance companies we work with.
Yeah, thank you, there is a gentleman that kind of runs the Billings chapter, whatever, all the local little leagues, and I think he'll be my first source and say, hey, obviously, we've been doing this for a while, but can you provide something formal? Or do we need to get something formal to make sure it's, I know we do have forms for all the parents to sign at the beginning of the season. I just need to figure out how those magically show up.
The waivers.
Yeah. So,
I'd ask that billing contact
yeah.
what they do.
Okay.
Your EIN needs a certificate of insurance, whether you're co-insured or not. At some point, the risk is why not to have that number covered.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I said, the bank had been asking for 12 years or something for an EIN number, so.
Yeah.
I finally got that done. So.
Nice.
I'll see.
This is a little off topic on that, but since I've been listening to some stuff, I'll let you guys know too that, we now have a Boy Scout troop in Red Lodge, not just Cub Scouts. We officially have Boy Scouts. There's only 4 of them, but they might be looking for projects with trails, planting trees, all different things, so.
Yeah, I think they're supposed to do the traffic circle once a year. Sam Thomas used to take a group, maybe I think it's Cub Scouts, and I think they kind of outgrew Cub Scouts, but the middle island of the traffic circle, once a year, they would go and like trim it and weed it and just do some general.
There's probably supposed to work on that, during your cleanup day or Earth Day or.
It was always just like whenever she wanted to get it scheduled, but that's always like, it's nice momentum to do it on that day. And she had safety vests for everybody, but.
Yeah, I think we doubled up and had our Cub Scouts last year
Mhm.
on whatever Earth Day or cleanup day. I had them pick the belt ball field so I could kind of get
Good job.
two birds with one stone there. But as you guys are doing different things, keep the Boy Scouts in mind,
Yeah.
that they'll be looking for,
Are you the contact for that?
yeah.
Right. So you have a scout that's playing ball.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, well, and basketball starts, that's Tuesdays and Thursdays, basketball.
I haven't needed a park yet, so.
Way to go. Well, well done to you. Thank you for coming.
Oh, thank you guys for
To see us, and looks like you will be a recurring sitcom in our lives.
Oh, probably. Until we fix a different sport and then, something else, so.
Way to
All
go.
right.
Yeah,
Thank you so
Thank you
much.
guys, appreciate it.
Nice to meet
Take care.
As for the rest of us, in our last meeting, couple action items were in an annual report document, which I've drafted. It is 2 pages, it is not a mistake, that's all there is. And so you can peruse, and if you have comments, thoughts, things to add, blah, 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 then you can please say so. But there was also a call for just an education on, hey, of that $80,000 budget that is for Parks Board, what is covered under it, and, you know, what's in it, and how do we spend it, and so on. Courtney, could I have you walk through that piece? Are you prepared to do so?
I am.
I just blindsided you. with
No,
that.
I was prepped.
Okay.
I was prepped. Let me get back to
Okay.
wherever I was.
And then while you dial that up, folks, was there anything else that we wanted to make sure we get out of this meeting today?
Who's at the helm next month?
I'm kind of wondering if January might be a cancellation. Because there's probably not gonna be someone in my position to make sure an agenda gets out. We're gonna do Parks Board appointments, at least get Virginia officially appointed at the council meeting in January. And then, then you have to appoint a new chair. So I don't know about January's meeting. That's you guys, if someone's willing to get an agenda together and get it out there.
I'm actually gonna be gone. First meeting in January.
I might go to.
Yeah, that might give the city some time to hopefully get a new planner in place and.
When will you decide what your involvement will be?
I don't know. I'm on the fence about just at least staying involved with Parks Board and just taking the Bee City stuff and making it into my little baby under the Parks Board umbrella. But I also understand, like, it's hard when you lose that, like, knowledge. So I still plan on being involved. I just don't know if it's gonna be as, like, an official voting member. But,
Could you get on the board? I mean,
I served on the board before I worked with the city.
you have a PO box, don't you?
I'm not. So,
No one cares.
the other thing I'd like to get out of the meeting is, I know Sarah had mentioned about trying to start talking about the Earth Day block party. That's just in a few months, so maybe at least trying to get a committee together to start having those side meetings of planning the block party. So budget-wise, I just sort of quickly copied what I've been using the last few years. Just for reference, show you what I used to do for the budget when I was the assistant city planner. Where are my budgets? So this was my first year, and I just used this template. Just don't even pay attention to that. And I really, like, as expenditures happened, I was really good about keeping up with this and tweaking our budget as we went, updating it throughout the year. Just trying to make sure we're tracking details, anything that was specific for grants that needed to be tracked better. The red are donations that were expected to be given to us and when they actually occurred. So for this year, I have not done that. And this is just like these budgeted amounts are just sort of what's been our standing one for the last year and a half, last couple budget cycles. But I did look at our expenditure, the city's expenditure report. This is where we currently are for the Parks Board, $23,651. So remaining, we have about $56,000 left for until the end of June.
That's mostly been because we've been like holding a bunch for the tennis courts, right?
Yeah, there's $40,000 that has been set aside for the tennis courts. Honestly, like if something else comes up that is yes, let's use that instead, because we really haven't made very good progress on the tennis courts.
Have we even talked to the engineer on that yet?
No, there's, like, the latest hangup has been because it's technically a school park. And so there's been sort of this, I think we need to work with the school more on responsibilities of the tennis courts. And then we also, when we heard that the ice rink was interested in putting in a pavilion, it just sort of sparked this bigger conversation of, I think we need to look at our main urban parks and facilities, and because it tends to be just we allow hockey there, so it makes sense to put a pavilion there rather than where is it most appropriate? Is that the best spot? Is there maybe a more suitable spot? Or is the tennis courts in the best spot? Should we separate pickleball? Where could they go? It's just like, I just sort of started spiraling. So, no, we haven't had, it really would be just ripping it out and redoing the tennis courts, and that's a couple $100,000 plus. This was just to repave it, but then it started sinking again.
Yeah.
Should we be taking some of that money for hiring engineering?
Yeah, I think that's something that we
plan.
could talk with Public Works about. Can we have this $40,000? Can we have someone come in and look, do some study to see what's going on underneath?
Right.
Yeah.
Because that's a few $1,000s right there.
Mm-hmm. I can talk to Great West and see if that's something that they might be able to do under their existing engineering contract.
So you were talking about, do we need to update the master park plan then? Is that something we can do in-house and not go out to because you were talking about revisions, but when you mentioned things like, should we go somewhere else or do the pavilion, that seems like it goes back to what the master plan should be.
Yeah, I think because our comprehensive parks plan, it very much, the first time I ever read it, my immediate feedback was each park needs its own set of goals and objectives, like what is the purpose of this park? And it really is just more of like an inventory. You get an inventory of what's in the park. And so I really think there should be, and it would involve a lot of public discussion. I was really excited to update it when I started, but then it became an issue of not being able to have the time dedicated to really get those. So I think you could do it in-house, if the momentum is there, if there's a committee that's willing to take take charge on that. I think where you would benefit is getting funding, maybe to do some rendering of maybe what's, you know, projected or what's desired in some of the parks.
So your replacement, how much, flood, how much of their time is also gonna be derailed by continued flood management? Because that's really what happened to you.
Yeah, I'm trying to, I'm really putting a lot of, voice into the need to have Great West appointed as the floodplain administrator, and maybe me as, you know, then it would be dedicated to me to continue that until at least the new person is caught up to speed on everything else. Part of it depends on their flood experience. And just for me, it's continuity's sake, but it did add about 30% of more work to my workload, so. And there's a lot of work still to be done with restoration. So I don't know, like, I know what I am proposing to the city, but I don't know what the city will actually move forward with.
When you back to the Parks Board budget, could you talk about just some of the mechanics of spending? So some of us in here have, say, bought things, you know, for parks projects or whatever, but can you educate on, as a city, if the dollar amount spent is less than X, then you can just go buy without bids, or, you know, past this point, you've got to get bids, and all the way to like big time projects like this $200K for a tennis court. Like, what are like the different spending amounts, and what are the requirements?
Yeah, so the city's policy is $80,000. Anything over $80,000 needs to be put out to bid. The exceptions to that is if you have a grant. So, like, some of the grant work we did last year was $25,000, $40,000, but the grant requires you to get bids, quotes from multiple companies to put it out there and receive bids on those projects. So part of it depends on if it's grant funded or not. Little expenditures, I mean, really like minor maintenance, upkeep, things like that we've talked about. Usually it's just you know, can I go to Red Lodge Ace and buy this, and then, you know, Red Lodge, the Ace Hardware will call me to get approval over the phone, and so it just keeps track. I mean, there's really not a set dollar amount that is like, well, if you go over 2,500, you really need to have the city do that, and that might be a good policy to put in place. Where the Parks Board is, the reason why we have a comprehensive parks plan is because the Parks Board didn't have a lot of oversight from the city, and so there were big projects happening without really city involvement, and I think that's where you want to stay far away from that. So a lot of the mechanism would be, unless there's smaller projects, where you can say, like, I just need a couple pieces of board and screws to go fix something, so I'm gonna go, and then they'll call you to approve it. Unless it's something like that, then you just work through me, like, tell me what you need and I'll order it, I'll get the supplies, or manage, you know.
Did we already pay for all those wood chips too? Do you know?
Did we pay for them?
That they
So
just
that's in
haven't
the-
We
brought
have
in?
one load left.
That's in the 23 grand, probably?
Yes.
So here's my big question. If we're $56,000 in the red, black, until June, and we don't have any plans, and Little League says, hey, guys, we have earmarked about $30,000 worth of improvements that need to be done in the field, how do we say no using that if it's available? And then it's like, well, you got your money in 2023-24 budget, and that's, you know, and then we move on to a new 80 July 1st, because we lose it if we don't use it, right? It doesn't carry over and add to our next year's.
Yeah, and that's where the reimbursement is, like, towards the end of the year. It's like, okay, we have this much to give for reimbursement, so we're giving $30,000 to Little League, and then something else comes up that's like maybe an emergency.
So we'd ask them to float it,
Mhm.
and then we'd look at reimbursing some of it before the end of June.
Mhm.
Wonder, is there BRTA stuff too, that,
Potentially.
Always.
But how do you do that? How do you do that fairly? And what's the responsibility of the board, right? So if this is already budgeted for X, that was then underwent the city process for approval, you know, things change or whatever, then this, what's considered a major expenditure that requires a revisit,
Mhm.
right? And if this Little League request for funds comes in, you know, how do you do that fairly as a board?
Yeah. It's a great question, because I don't think we really have those procedures laid out, at least recently.
With letting the stakeholders, people who might benefit from and use the money, so some of those other organizations listed in the MOUs, BRTA, different organizations, if they don't know how to access the funds and how to ask for them, and what those periods look like there should be, I would suggest that there should be some sort of regular schedule that,
Mhm.
you know, budgets for your organization and funds are requested by a certain time, so that you can look at all of them and weigh them
And
equally.
that is in the MOUs, and just like,
And
it's never been really,
So whose job is it, this is the question you're asking, but whose job is it to help the organizations keep their MOUs intact? Is it the city or is it the MOU?
it's been the Parks Board,
Yeah.
with the support of the city, to reach out and say, your MOU is about to expire. And that's the issue that when I started, I would email all of the contacts and say, like, hey, we need this by October, it's, you know, and by May, give us
Yeah.
you have reimbursement requests, and just a lot of just not.
It's a volunteer, this is, I mean, the Parks Board is a volunteer group of individuals, no different than any of the other volunteer organizations who are trying to manage that $80,000 that's been allocated to them.
Mhm.
I mean, we reached out to specific baseball and softball in May, actually started in April, and the carrot was, please sign the MOU.
Right.
It hasn't been signed in years by them. And, and by the way, now's a good time to submit needs, because the fiscal year ends at the end of June, and if you have something you want done, and I think it pushed them to scramble
Yeah.
to do all this, but now we're in that new cycle.
Mhm.
But then, you know, so let's walk that out one more step, you know, we issue, you know, to the user groups, such a request is out, send them by this date, you know, and if you don't raise your hand when you're out, okay, that's easy. But then now all these requests come in for this amount, like what is the responsibility of the Parks Board to say, this is how we allocate, you know, how do you do that fairly?
Yeah, so they're usually, like, we get the request in, and then at one of the meetings, we'll look at what the amounts of the requests are, and if we think that it's a fair request, you know, and so I mean, that's part of having a group, a board, having those conversations, so it's not just one person's decision of, yeah, they'll get 30,000, but I only wanna give them 500, or, you know, and so, like, I remember one year, BRTA requested a pretty hefty amount, but the amount of money that BRTA had, like, just, you know, demonstrated that they spent on city parks and trails, like, well, this is a fair percentage compared to, like, I think the Garden Club was another one that was looking for 500, which is like half of the cost of something, but it was much smaller. They didn't, you know, and so as a board, we just looked at those numbers and said, yeah, we'll approve like a higher amount. And I mean, that's part of the purpose of having a group, making those sort of.
Not to make a calculation out of it, but to me, it seems like it should be a little bit of an algorithm too, because some parks are bigger, some user groups have more people accessing, using them, so it's kind of like weighted.
Yeah.
You know, golf comes in, they want $1,000, you know, and soccer needs 2,000 for fertilizer and things like that, and then, you know, and I'm not in the camp of the ball field, I'm just trying to get it through, I'm trying to understand, this is a huge city park, that has been, and sorry, but it has been, it's no attribute to any one person, certainly not to you, Courtney, but it's been neglected for a long time. It needs some revamp. And now you have an organization that's coming in and has all this life. You know, maybe it's like a 50-50 thing. It's a big request they're asking for. And they haven't demonstrated yet that they put in the skin. But, you know, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Because then you have BRTA and you have trails used by way beyond the user group. It's the community.
Yeah.
Huge community thing.
So I think that thinking about them a little bit like a grant request, you know, you get 1,000 grant requests and you have a certain amount of funds and you need to sit still with a rubric and a conversation about exactly what you're talking about. And that's a lot to put on a volunteer organization. And not looking at you as volunteers leading you have an $80,000 budget, and how is it that you're going to allocate those funds? Going into June with $56,000 still in your coffers, unfortunately, is fiduciary, you've dropped the fiduciary ball, right? And I'm calling us as an organization out on that too. I'm horrified that we don't always spend everything that we're given in order to make success, but it's hard to pick a project. Some of them are massive projects that require the savings account in order to get there. And you don't have that luxury.
Yeah.
You have to spend it.
And that's been part of the issue the last couple of years, because the flood really took, like, I was able to manage different projects and spending, making sure the money was getting spent, and then I lost that ability. And so then it definitely put more on this group to try to, you know, and like, we don't want to ask anyone to have to manage contractors. Like, that's not the role of this board.
Well, it puts some responsibility on Cynthia too.
Yep.
I mean, she's the city council person that oversees us, and now Courtney's gonna be gone in 2-3 weeks. And I hope we don't, you know, fall in the cracks.
Well, talk about that, because, like managing contractors, you know, like, what can this board do, what can they not do, you know? Like, can a volunteer board who is not a city, like, employee, like, manage contractors, which in my mind means, like, act as an agent on behalf of the city contractual requirements?
No,
Yeah.
I would say no, we are advisory only.
But we manage contractors on behalf of Coal Miners Park to put trails in.
Well, soccer managed a whole contractor to put in a $190,000 field, but it was the organization, it wasn't the board.
Yep, I understand.
Yeah.
It's just tricky, it's a funny thing, and that's where the partnerships with some of these external organizations come into play, is I'm putting the management, meaning the RTA, soccer, putting the management of the contractors, but then when we come to ask for funds to support the project, it's coming from, we're helping do that legwork, basically. It's not easy, but it's, I mean, you're asking really good questions. I think.
I am?
Yeah, I don't, like, sitting here, I would think that this is probably kind of frustrating to not know how to manage the assets you've been asked to manage.
And quite frankly, like, it takes a while to be like, oh, I think I should know this already.
Well, as
Oh, crap.
Tom, when the pool used to come in, used to be the sole responsibility, the city would look to the Parks Board and say, what are you doing about the pool? It's like, no way, there's no way is volunteer people gonna handle that, so they got an organization to.
So, yeah, and we don't have a Bill Foisey, you know, that when he was on the Parks Board, like, he was all about the budget and like, he, you know, and that's one thing that this is a
And he was
very.
city council,
Huh?
he was a council member at the time.
Was he on council? at the
I think he
same time?
was.
And this is a young board in terms of how long people have been serving on it, and just of, you know, learning where and I appreciate the hesitancy rather than the, you know, oh, we got this money, let's
Take over.
yeah, let's just go and do it, you know, and making sure that everything that's done is something that the city And that's part of, again, that's why we had a comprehensive parks plan, and then a planner appointed to the Parks Board was to make sure that things are, you know, kind of following with our parks plan and not going like way left field. And
Is your replacement's job description include managing an $80,000 parks budget?
I don't know, I have heard potentially that they are going to take this position, the liaison position, and turn it back into a public works, which is a position we ended up in so many years ago, because it was the responsibility of public works, and nobody was ever attending the parks board meetings, so there was no direction from the city.
She's sitting there eating chocolate.
It's awesome,
So the Parks Board has only had $80,000 for like the past few years, right? Like that's a big jump, and I thought that it was requested of the city to have that much because of the tennis court project. So like we're not guaranteed 80,000 every year, right? That's not like a dependable amount.
No, when I started, the Parks Board had 20,
Well, it used to be even higher,
yeah,
and then it went down to nothing.
Yeah,
It was
like in
20 when
21,
James-
it was 30,000. So like how, I guess I don't even understand how it's decided how much money the Parks Board.
so that was on me. So when I started and I looked at the Parks Board budget, I created this because I was like, there's so much we can do that the Parks Board, I mean, the Parks Board was losing members because there was no money to do anything, any projects. And so I created this budget to show, to demonstrate, this is how the funds can be used. And because I had the time to contribute, you know, we used a lot of them. It's just in the last couple of years, I've kept this, and I've been saying, like, caveat, like, we have a lot of things that need to get done, but what we don't have is the capacity for someone to manage those projects. And so it's not that the Parks Board doesn't need this budget. Parks Board could have double, triple, quadruple this budget, but if you don't have somebody that can help manage the projects that they are recommending to do, then, you know. So I do fear that if we go too many years without showing that, you know, that we
That we
can.
need in excess of it.
Yeah, and I think like softball is a great, you know, there's stuff that's needed to be done there for years, and it's great they have people in place that are willing to start taking that on. And I think Willie as well, like, is willing to step up and help as well.
So what do we do next?
Well, there's a list of how things, you know, is sort of laid out, like we've been talking about picnic tables. I know there's like some benches on some of the trails and parks that are, need to be replaced. Signage, we've talked about needing to update signage. Like, there's things that I think this board can continue to work on over the next few months.
But this is all stuff that's like on the city maintenance list. Like, how do we spend money if we're just telling the city to do these things month after?
So some of this stuff, like I've told Willie, like, Willie, we have money for new benches. We can pay for the benches. Like, you tell us when you're ready to put the benches in, and we'll pay for the benches. Like I think there's a disconnect there maybe then with, hey, we want this done, but not a, this is how we're gonna pay. Like, this is what the Parks Board is willing to pay for. We want this done. If we're willing to pay for this, then will it get done? Because it may be on his end, he's just hearing, they want this done. I don't have that in my budget to get the supplies for that. Maybe there's a disconnect there. That could be fixed.
Like, because there's like,
Well, that seems like,
there's a lot of money on this city maintenance list. But I guess I thought that was different than this budget too. I don't know.
Yeah, the city
Totally
has,
confused now.
yeah, the Public Works also has their own parks budget for like fertilization. They do pine needle spraying. There's some things that the Public Works is supposed to do that.
Like the spraying we're doing at Van Dyke, is that something Parks has to pay for?
If the Public Works parks didn't budget for it, it's just like, it
We
was
bring-
adding something extra.
yeah,
What spring?
weed spraying.
In Blue Dyke,
Bad.
on the trail?
No, off of that, there's,
Oh,
yeah,
not weeds off in the
Yeah.
Never.
yeah,
I mean, we put a pretty solid effort into some of the trails this
Yeah.
summer, and everywhere I could reach
yeah,
off of it.
yeah, we tried to do some hand.
Spraying or mowing?
Mechanical and spraying.
Does someone,
With we used the county, some of that was county resources.
okay, is someone like tracking that?
Tom, was that this last summer that
Yeah,
Tom?
2 summers in a row we've worked on it, but we put the mechanical effort, most of it was mechanical effort this summer, like widening the trail, and it all gets logged on VRTA stuff.
Oh, yeah, cause I know we've had like a lot of talks
Yeah.
about spraying and who's gonna do that.
Yeah, and then, I mean, we did spray both the broadleaf and, I mean, because what's in the trail is not okay, and then what's outside knapweed
So
everywhere.
they
But that's,
should be able to put in a receipt
Mm-hmm.
for materials.
I think they get donated in the county.
the county we bought the sprayers and the tools and garnered the volunteers. The county gives us the spray.
Oh,
Because everything we're spraying for is, like, it's knapweed and it's
Noxious,
considered
yeah,
noxious. So
hound
they're
song and stuff,
happy
they
to
don't,
have us out there doing that, and then Red Rooster is supposed to do some of it.
Yeah.
It's just, that's a tricky use of, you're right, how do we document, like, when to spray, how much to spray?
Or just like, cause Red Rooster won't spray some of that, but then they do spray some, like, I don't know,
It's kind of fun.
well, and they're so busy. I mean,
yeah, but we need to know like what they're spraying
And it doesn't do me any good to spray if they're gonna spray.
yeah.
Or vice versa, maybe we could concentrate our efforts somewhere else. So probably makes sense to have a more comprehensive conversation about it, but
Yeah.
it does get to the point, like, we gotta do something about this, because it's.
It was major.
It was, yeah, and trying to chip away at some of those chunks.
Yeah, and I think that's a follow-up action item for me with Tom, because I was gonna talk to Tom about, I think I had talked to Tom about doing a, sort of a map of what gets sprayed and when, of, the Red Rooster says they do this, the county says they do this, some maybe other groups do, like, figuring out what's getting left out.
Well, and the maintenance is bigger than spraying sometimes, like the airport loop, the trail is just, the sage is encroaching on the trail, and so, I mean, we were weed whacking and pushing back the sage a little bit. There's an appropriate width, and I like the single trackness of it, but that is not what we built the trail for. So it's hard to put your own like of it a certain way aside and keep the minimum width we agreed to build it to. Anyway,
Well, guess who's logged an action item for comprehensive weed? Like, like my job is to like look at time. So there's 6 minutes left of this meeting, and so with that, on the topic of action items, on the topic of continuity, especially as many personnel changes are happening, you know, then I would, dear darlings, like encourage you to like cut yourself a piece of cake right now. And as you like chew your cake and like thank God that I'm the genius baker that I am. I am, it's true. Then take a look at this list and go, oh, Amy girl, log this action item too, to kind of help with that continuity piece. And what I hope this, you know, this park list table on the second page of this, eyeball test will do is kind of help spur that continuity of looking forward. You know, here are the things to do. This cover page may be just some global actions that have many touch points on parks and whatever. So take a look and let's just like do it now.
so who sent these around? Is this, Amy, was this you?
No,
Or was
that's,
you?
that's me,
Okay, so did you attach Heather Schmidt's,
BRTA.
because there's
No, I have,
100+ hours in there.
yeah, this
Okay.
is just to try to get from this board
Mhm.
of,
Oh, our
if,
volunteer hours.
yeah, if someone hasn't submitted volunteer hours to myself or Amy, of making sure we get it written down and we can,
So if we sent you an email earlier on some of that,
you
I'm
should
sure
have
you
it.
still have it? Okay, all right.
So, okay, EK, look at the list. EK, look at the list. Go, go,
And then also,
do it.
for you all to know, so the new public works director will start in February.
Okay.
And then as things are happening, like Sarah texted me the other day that the gate, the latch was broken at the dog park, and I texted Willie, and so Willie is technically on streets right now, but I texted Willie and said, can someone go do this and fix it within like an hour? So, if you see things come up as well, I'll try to keep, there's a couple things I wanna kind of bug him about before I leave.
So this BRTA list though, that Heather did have some kind of like outstanding action items.
Okay, fine, nobody looking.
Okay.
Can do.
And some of them are things we will take on, and we'll continue to
Well,
take care of.
but if we have them on our list.
They
then
should be
we
on this
double-
list when we double take care of.
Great,
it.
yeah.
But
Right? Oh, God, I want my-
So,
It's so rich.
It's really good.
so Melissa, I just had a question. That last paragraph on here, is that the construction activities? Is that talking about down behind the shed where they
Yeah.
put the pipelines or,
yeah,
okay.
it is that,
Where are the weeds the worst? Because I didn't think they were bad down over the back this year.
Oh.
By the creek?
Yeah, after it.
I think, I had dinner, but I don't have any teeth. It's like I can see the shiny ice.
Oh.
It's really delicious.
That was part of yesterday's
it's that,
culinary challenge. Yeah.
it's the hill between the high school that you're talking
2
about.
dinners in 20 minutes.
They're new ground.
Yes,
They're coal landfill, that's what I
Right.
call it. Okay.
but that's what, like, this is just personal beef, but that's like a really nice piece of real estate that could be a beautiful asset to the park. Some trees, some grass, some
And
shrubbery.
And you saw the stakes. 75% of it belongs to the park.
Oh,
But
for
it's
the,
missing, like, it doesn't have any, it's definitely short on some of that. But we did, the next piece down there is where that construction happened, that, storm sewer, storm
Behind
water.
the shed and the playground area.
Between the playground and the, I mean, she's right, there's glass all over down there. It's like they dug into the landfill, and it is apparent that that's what,
Is leaving it just as topsoil now.
yeah, it's not pretty. And it's, like, I don't.
Down behind the
I
shed.
run my dog down there sometimes,
Yeah.
just walk, I just go to, and it's like,
Oh,
it's
like
not great.
by the playground?
Yeah.
there? Oh, yeah, that's
Yeah.
nuts.
Yeah,
Seeing as there are no additional call-outs, then
Oh, my goodness.
it is 7 PM.
That's like fudge.
Melissa, do you wanna talk a couple minutes about the executive director position and sort of the goal of that, and maybe how they interact with either the board or the city?
yeah. We have, opened a position for an executive director, part-time. And I think one of the things that we acknowledge is that the Parks Board and the city of Red Lodge and Parks and Trails all in general kind of, we need to work together. And so there may be an opportunity for us to come to the Parks Board with a proposal to have, part of a contract, so to speak, to pay part of, executive director's salary to do exactly what we've just been talking about. So to be the drive, lack of a better way to describe it, to be the continuity and to be maybe, or to have, there are other models out there, Boise has a really good one, where the city, the Forest Service, the BLM, and, organization called Bridge to Rivers all have an MOU, and they each have roughly 25 to 30% of that person's budget salary in their budget, the whole organization, and they drive it forward. So to start out with, it's just like, we need to get an executive director hired. Part of the job description is to sit on the Parks Board, to come to these meetings and start creating, to be I'm looking at Madeline, but to be the face of, that Forest Service knows, that the BLM knows, that the county knows for the organization, and then how do we partner better with the city? What roles can, if the city doesn't have a parks director, then maybe there's an opportunity for us to help, because parks are recreation too, trail, all of it is all.
That'd be awesome.
Be great to integrate that.
Yeah, and I mean, my hope was, or hope is, I think some of us in the organization are hopeful we'll get this person hired, and I will have a proposal, we'll have a proposal to this group to put that onto budget next year. But somebody hired, as you know, volunteer boards move just as quickly as the amount of time that volunteers who are the board members have to spend on it, and I'm not entirely certain where they are in the hiring process. I know there's a job description, and I know
And you've
there's
had
some
interest.
applicants. I know one or two.
So it could be 6 months.
That would be a really
I hope not,
aggressive
but,
implementation if that could work out.
and I mean, we would take it, it's, I mean, we met with the planner, met with the mayor, kind of trying to figure out where to put it and how to, there's a lot of transition happening, so it might be easiest for us to come to the Parks Board, with a proposal to contract out trail work, in exchange for paying X amount for this individual salary, the city can expect to see these things to do with trails and parks and that kind of stuff, and then we move. And I think that's probably the easiest way to make this happen, and then when benefits are seen by all, then we can.
Did you apply for that job?
Not. City does every day.
I have been a broken record for 20 years that we need it.
Yep, we do. And maybe baby steps are just
I hope the
showing it
new
all.
mayor thinks along those lines too.
Yep.
And I think that's where this board also can have a voice too, of just like, it's our recommendation, our advisory, that this is a huge component of continuity, of making sure that there's someone that attends these meetings, that hears the projects, and then that is their responsibility, is to move forward with these, work with public works,
Yeah.
not get told to do different things.
So it seems as if maybe there's not a January meeting.
Yeah, we didn't approve minutes either.
Oh dear. Yes, okay. Is there a motion to approve November minutes?
So moved.
All those in favor of approving November minutes, please say aye. Aye. Excellent. Another set of excellent minutes.
Well, maybe the park board personnel go to a BRTA meeting.
At this point, my intention is to come to the meetings until we find hire a, executive director and to be the face, so, like it or not.
I can be here in January. I don't know what.
Yeah.
It's the hard, the leadership question, right?
Yeah.
Like, who's on first?
Yeah.
And anybody from the Parks Board is welcome to attend a meeting. I'm the vice president and happy to put you on the agenda or let you sit and attend, so please. Summer Trails, if you want to come to committee meetings, there's a Winter Trails committee meeting tomorrow night. I think there's opportunity there across the board, but I know Courtney's works, has participated on the Summer Trails stuff, but.
Is there a typical meeting time?
Yeah, the The board,
Thank you.
the board meets on the second Wednesday of every month at 6